Well, good evening and welcome to this live stream from the Summer Academy. My name is Paul Mueller. I'm an assistant professor of economics here at the King's College. It's a pleasure to welcome you to this evening that we have in store for you, mostly to highlight our program, the Summer Academy program here at the King's College. I'm the academic director for the program and have been for several years, and it keeps getting better, and I'm excited to tell you a little bit about it. So this evening, the plan is to, again, tell you some about the program, to introduce the different tracks that we have available, and the leaders of those tracks and the faculty who will be delivering the training. They're going to talk some about what you can expect in the different tracks, depending on which you choose to take. And we're going to talk a little bit about living and working here in New York City, what that's like, what you can expect if you come for a week or if you come to be a student down the road. And most importantly, we would also like to answer any questions that you all may have about it. So if you do have questions, please submit them online, and we're going to spend some time at the end of the session to address specific questions you have about the tracks or the program or being here in New York City or anything else. So with that, let me talk about the program more generally. The Summer Academy has been around for about 4 or 5 years now. It's been growing every year. We have more tracks than ever before. This summer, we're going to be offering 2 different weeks with 3 tracks in each week. So the first part of this live stream, we're going to look at the tracks offered for the first week, and then there'll be a short commercial break and information about one of those tracks. And then when we come back, we're going to look at the second week and hear more about what's offered during that week, and then talk a little bit about what life is like here in the city. We'll hear from the faculty who will be delivering these tracks as well. So again, for those of you who don't know, the first week of Summer Academy is going to be from July 14th to the 19th. And then the second week will be 2 weeks later from July 26th to August 2nd. So for those of you who really want to brave it, you can come to both, but that's certainly not required. So for the first week, let's talk about that first. The tracks, we have 3 different ones. One track is called Philosophy and the Good Life, that one of our professors of philosophy will be teaching, Dr. David Talcott, and we're going to hear from him in just a minute about what that track's about and why it's important. A second track that we have for that first week is the Economics of Foreign Aid that Dr. Pinson is going to be teaching about here in the city and aid and what we can learn about it using economics. And then the third track for that first week is Christian Leadership and the American Founding. And we have our very own president of the King's College, former Brigadier General in the Air Force, Tim Gibson, is going to be directing and leading that track as well. And so without further ado, let me introduce you to those faculty, and let's hear from them a little bit about their track and the programming and what you can expect and look for and hope to get out of it. So with that, I think what we'll do here is we'll start particularly with you, President Gibson and Dr. Talcott. So we'll start, I guess, actually with Professor Talcott, we'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and so, you know, how you came to King's and your time here, and then a little bit about the content of your track, what you'll be covering, possible field trips, and why it matters for the students, what they can expect to get out of it. So please.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, so I'm Dr. David Talcott, professor of philosophy here, and I came here via Hillsdale College and Indiana University, where I studied philosophy at both those places, and very happy to be able to teach philosophy here now. My track is entitled Philosophy and the Good Life. So our culture today seems to have very limited range of options available to us in thinking about what a successful life looks like. It seems like power, money, and things like that are kind of the range of our imagination and our vision when it comes to what a successful life looks like. And in this course, we're going to take in this week-long academy track, we're going to take a look at what the great thinkers from the past have said about what a successful life looks like. What does it look like to live a good life? What does it mean to live a good life? So we're going to look at some very old authors, and we're going to look at some new authors, and get a chance to reflect together and work through some really great and classic texts, important texts, and look at what they have to teach us about what it means to live a good life. So that's a fundamental human question that all of us have to address in how we live. We all make choices in what we pursue and what we take to be valuable. And this is a chance to sit and learn from some great thinkers, some Christian thinkers like St. Augustine and Jonathan Edwards, some pagan authors from the past like Plato and Aristotle, and we're gonna work through it all together in this track this summer. Looking forward to it. I'm still finalizing what our field trips are going to be and where we're going to go and what we're going to do. We'll take at least one trip to the Cloisters Museum, which is up at the very northern edge of Manhattan. It's almost like this retreat at the edge of Manhattan, and it's almost like they put a medieval monastery right on the edge of the city. And there's some incredible artwork from the history of Christianity, some really incredible physical spaces. It's going to be a chance to talk together about some really important things in a unique historic environment. So that's at least one of the field trips we'll be taking, along with everything else going on during that week with the track.
Excellent. Great. Thank you. And one thing I do want to mention, too, that's important to know. So this is a week-long track, and it's not a full course here, but you do get 1 college credit. So there will be some reading. There will be an assessment at the end. But there'll be other fun things as well. And learning, the learning I think you'll find is actually really fun here, and something that students really enjoy is that, addressing these meaningful questions are really important. So I'll talk a little bit more about the non-academic parts of Summer Academy in a little bit, and perhaps if you have questions, you can submit those. But before I do that, I want to turn to President Gibson to talk about his track about Christian leadership in the American founding.
Great. Thank you, Paul. Well, this will be the 3rd year that we've offered this particular track, and so I'm really privileged to teach it now for the 3rd time. And the genesis of this really comes from my military experience. So I was an Air Force pilot for 32 years, but over the course of my career, had an opportunity at one point to study with the United States Army at their school at Fort Leavenworth. And one of the electives that I took was something they referred to as a staff ride, which was to study a historical event, a particular battle, and then after studying it really thoroughly, going and visiting the battlefield itself. And what struck me about that approach was that it took that 2-dimensional story and brought it into that 3rd dimension. So now you could appreciate what the obstacles were at the time and those types of things. When I got to King's in 2016, after retiring from the Air Force, I just became, as many people are, fascinated with the history of New York City. And it's got a deep history that goes well back before the American Revolution. But as a military leader, I got particularly interested in the revolutionary period of the city. And what I didn't know at that time, but came to understand, was that the Battle of Brooklyn was the first battle fought after the American Declaration of Independence was signed, and it turned out to be the largest battle of the entire Revolutionary War. So that in and of itself were 2 good reasons for me to study it a little bit and think about it. But what I started to really become fascinated with is that although the Americans and the British were led by the exact same commanders that had met in Boston the year previous, this time the outcome was 180 degrees opposite. So instead, in Boston, Washington beat Howe and drove the British out of Boston. But here in New York City, the outcome was dramatically different. And so trying to understand what led to that outcome really became a very interesting study for me personally, and one that now we turn around and study here with high school students as part of the Summer Academy track. And we're privileged because we can study the story, but then actually go visit the sites where the events actually unfolded.
Yeah, and this might come up later in Q&A, but if you do take that track, be prepared for a decent amount of walking. I remember hearing stories from students who were walking all over where the battlefields used to be, and that's the great thing about Manhattan is you can get around a lot by walking. So with that, the 3rd track, so you've heard about philosophy and the good life and about Christian leadership and the American founding, and particularly the Battle of Brooklyn and the military piece of that. The third track, Dr. Pinson wasn't able to join us this evening, but he's actually recorded a short video to tell you about it. So we're going to go to that in just a second. Very short, telling you about his track of foreign aid and economics and the relationship between the two. So let's go to that now.
Hello, my name is Jared Pinson, and I am the Senior Economist and an Associate Professor of Economics at the King's College. I'm the Head Professor of the Economics of Foreign Aid track, which is happening during the first week of the Summer Academy program. In this track, we will explore together the ins and outs of foreign aid. It is my hope that by the end of the track, each student will understand 4 main points. First, students should understand the objective of foreign aid in economic development. Second, students should be able to advance a positive case for the use of foreign aid. Third, students should understand the complexities of foreign aid and why it does not work as well as policymakers hope. And lastly, I will present a biblical narrative for how Christians can interpret foreign aid. This class will vary between lecture and class discussion. There will also be 2 field trips. It is imperative that students complete their readings before each lecture, as they will provide background and context. The readings will be scholarly in nature and will include excerpts from books and journals. I look forward to meeting you this summer and exploring foreign aid together. It should be a lot of fun. So thank you and blessings.
Well, welcome back. So you heard from Dr. Pinson a little bit about economics and foreign aid and what you'll be covering in that course. So that covers the first week of Summer Academy. From July 14th to 19th, but we're offering a second week of Summer Academy as well with different tracks that you can pick from if the dates work better, if the tracks interest you more. And that second week is going to be focused primarily around media and journalism, and there are going to be kind of 3 related tracks underneath that. The tracks are sports and entertainment journalism with Dr. Clemente Lisi, arts and culture reporting with Dr. Paul Glatter, and then visual storytelling and design, which is a brand new track that we're running with Miss Melissa Harrison is going to be running that. So unfortunately, only Dr. Glatter could join us tonight, so he's going to be kind of doing triple duty here. But it's fitting because he directs our journalism program here and has been instrumental in this program for many years, Summer Academy and journalism. And so with that, I'm going to let Professor Glatter talk a little bit about the 3 tracks, about media and journalism here, and how Summer Academy fits into all that, what you can expect in the tracks, and different field trips that they might take.
Great, thank you. Hi everyone. I want to correct one quick thing, which is I don't have a PhD. My terminal degree is an MBA, so I go by Professor Glatter.
There you go.
So you know. And so journalism and media is a wonderful field here in New York City. It's one of the fields that is New York City. And I say that we sit here just a block and a half away from Federal Hall, which has great significance to politics and George Washington, leadership, and so to many of our tracks. But when it comes to media and journalism, I like to mention it because that's where the First Amendment was authored, and which gives us press freedom and religious freedom and 5 key freedoms. So we're around the corner from Federal Hall. Journalism is thriving in New York City. Our programs in journalism at the King's College are also growing and thriving, and this is a great city to experience and learn about media and about journalism. And so as it applies to our Summer Academy, I'll tell you a bit about our 3 tracks and the 3 track leaders. And so each of the 3 track leaders happen to have a lot of journalism experience and degrees in the field. And so starting with my colleague Clemente Lisi, he's leading a track on sports journalism. So Professor Lisi grew up in New York City. He started his career after Columbia Journalism School for grad school. He started his career at the New York Post covering news at there. He also then worked at abcnews.com and the New York Daily News. He loves sports journalism, and so do I, and Terry Mattingly, by the way, and a lot of our faculty. And he's written a couple books on soccer. He writes about soccer. He was in Moscow, Russia this past year covering the World Cup for a few different outlets, I think including The Guardian, the British publication. So he loves sports. And we had a wonderful track on sports journalism last year that we're continuing. And some of the things I know that happened And by the way, so if you come for our journalism week at the Summer Academy, you're going to hear some lectures that all 3 tracks will hear together on foundations of journalism, what it means to be a Christian who's involved in journalism work, some key things that we think are important for our students in terms of frameworks. And then you'll break out for a set of lectures in the specific track. So in sports journalism, I know Professor Lisi last year took a group to the Brooklyn Cyclones, no, not the Brooklyn Cyclones, the New York Staten Island Yankees game. And the students covered the game and met the players, had a press conference afterward, had to write sports stories from that. So it was a really interesting experience. And they met sports journalists who covered the team as well. I think they also went to Madison Square Garden. So I'm sure Professor Lisi has those or similar outings and assignments that supplement the lectures he will be giving on how do you write a game story, how do you cover sports, how that part of journalism works. And then similarly, on the track I'm leading on culture reporting, Terry Mattingly will also be giving some lectures in that wing. We picked that topic because in New York City, there's a lot of culture reporting that happens on film, on music, on television, on art, and many other zones. So we give you kind of an overview of the different zones where culture reporting is happening. We look at examples of how culture reporting happens, how culture reporting is different than culture opinion writing, and then we turn you loose. And so our field trips last year, we visited a newsroom. It happened to be Newsweek, and we heard from culture reporters and editors, video game writers, etc. at Newsweek. So we'll probably do that again. And then last year we visited the MoMA, the Modern Contemporary Art Museum, and students got to pick one of the special new exhibits to write about it, and that was the assignment. So we'll see if we do that or have a different surprise for you, but that's what you can look forward to, I think. And then the new track this year is on visual journalism. And by the way, before I tell you about visual journalism, what do Terry Mattingly and I, what is our background on culture reporting? Well, basically, I spent a decade at the Wall Street Journal and as a reporter, and have covered many things, mostly in business and finance, but also on a lot of other topics, including culture at times. So I'm going to share what I've learned in that space. And I teach a class at King's called Persuasive Writing and Speaking, where we spend a month on culture criticism. So I teach you from that background. And Terry Mattingly has written a lot about pop culture and writes a syndicated national column on religion that often touches on culture. So he brings that experience to bear in that track. And then finally, the third track, as I mentioned, led by Melissa Harrison. She also was a broadcast TV and radio journalist who has a degree from Columbia Journalism School. And we are still formulating that track, but what I can tell you is we want you to understand how you tell video stories, how you approach a story and tell it in a video context, a radio or podcast context, how you take photos. We want to have some photojournalism element. So we want a student who's really interested in multimedia journalism, multimedia storytelling and reporting to come and just dip their toes deeper into that and basically learn how you approach the story and then use the skill sets to tell that story. So I'm sure we'll have more to reveal about that in coming weeks, but I hope that's helpful to those who are interested.
Yeah, that's great. And one thing that I'll clarify as well is that Terry Mattingly is a visiting professor who comes here for certain times during the semester, and he is not leading a track, but he participates quite a bit during the media and journalism on multiple tracks and about Christian journalism in particular. So he will be another one of the faculty that you'll see in that track. Great. So what I want to do briefly now, you've heard about the tracks, you've met some of the different track leaders and faculty. I want to just take a couple minutes for you to hear from people living here in New York City of what it's like to be here, what it's like to live here. So I have just a couple questions that we'll just kind of run through rapid fire style. And so first question, what are 2 or 3 things you really enjoy about living in and near New York City? So we'll start with you.
Okay, so I think one of the things that my wife and I have really come to enjoy is getting to know the city, sort of neighborhood by neighborhood. New York City, Manhattan itself, is not this monolithic 8 million people all living in very limited real estate, but it's really rather these little neighborhoods of Chelsea and Tribeca and NoHo Little Italy and all these things. And as you explore the city, there are fascinating stories that come to light that shaped that particular neighborhood, that had an impact on the overall nature and development of the city. So we just love exploring it, whether it's through some of the free tours that are offered in the different regions and different neighborhoods, or just going out and looking at something for ourselves. We've got kind of a list we've put together of places that we want to visit, and so we love getting to know the city in that way.
Great.
I would say it really is a city that never sleeps. There's always something going on. The activity level will definitely keep you from being bored. And I would say too, kind of at a almost like a raw logistical level, it is incredible what happens in the city in terms of the movement of people, the movement of vehicles, mass transit. It's just on a scale unlike anything I've ever seen. And there's some days you're just walking through the streets and just wondering how is this all even organized and happening like this? So it's a very fun place.
Two quick things. One is public transit. I grew up in South Dakota, where you drive everywhere on gravel roads and maybe even ride a horse to some places. And public transit in big megacities like New York is really fun to experience, and something I think summer academy students really enjoy experiencing, being around other people, taking the subway and buses and other means. And to what end, like following on the comments that were already made, to experience just the wealth of activities, to take my kids to a Broadway show or to indie rock show, or to go to interesting restaurants. That's it's just a privilege to be able to experience that and to share that with our visiting students for the Summer Academy.
Yeah, great. I think I would just add for myself that this seems kind of mundane, but the food is really remarkable. I mean, just the variety, the quality. And I also should mention it too, because it's something that you'll experience here as well, that we try to definitely introduce you to the highlights of different kinds of cuisine here. And the food is very good in the program because we have just a wealth of options available. Let me ask just one more question here, and then we're going to do another quick sort of commercial video about Summer Academy, and then we're going to get into your questions. There are already several great questions coming in, and so I'll be answering some of those questions and offering some for the faculty who are here. But let me ask, I'm going to combine a couple of questions. I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to combine a couple of questions. You can pick what you want to answer as we go here. So here's the questions I'm going to combine. So what do students find when they come to the city in terms of how do they experience it? And related to that, and different I suppose, is what do you think is distinctive about King's and its programs, particularly given its location in New York City? So you can think about, what do students find? What has the student experience been as you've seen it? Or what's distinctive about King's and its programs? In fact, there's already a question here about how is the King's Summer Academy different from other summer camps, which is a great question. So feel free to kind of answer one or both of those as you would like. And I have no particular order here. Feel free to jump in, mix it up.
When I was a high school kid, there was an elder in my church I was attending who said, when you're going to college, just remember that the Bible tells us to love the Lord with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength. And it is important. What you're doing in college or in high school too with your mind is really, really important. And so I think Summer Academy, we recognize that, the intellectual value, but I think also heart, soul, mind, soul. I think there's not too many, I'm guessing, other week-long programs where you can combine New York City with care for your mind and your intellect as well as your soul. And so while we're teaching journalism in our case, we also care about, I think, the souls of each person who comes and spends a week with us, and each person who comes and spends 4 years with us. But that was just the first thought that came to my mind.
Yeah.
Great.
I would say one of the things that's interesting about our program, stepping back and thinking about the 4-year King's experience especially, is King's provides a strong Christian community for students that come in to continue to grow spiritually. But we don't isolate students from the real world. A lot of schools exist in a kind of isolated bubble. Christian schools are like this. A lot of secular liberal arts colleges are like this, where they sort of cordon their students off from reality. And one thing that we don't do is separate our students from reality. They're walking on the same city streets as everybody else. And I've actually found that our students who come and make it through our full program, they really have a maturity to them where they're able to function in the real world. And I think coming for a week in the summer, it won't be a thing where it's an isolated retreat where you're not going to get a taste of the city. It's going to be both that community and community formation element, as well as being out there in the real world.
Yeah, I don't know that there's anything that I could point to that's going to be more helpful than to say that we've got 4 commitments that when you overlap and combine them at King's really become pretty distinctive. And the week during Summer Academy will give you a microcosm of what that is. So those 4 commitments are first the Christian worldview, and being a Christian in New York City has already been discussed, and seen what it's like to be a Christian in journalism or Christian as a philosopher, etc. The second commitment is the curriculum that we have at King's. And while you won't during Summer Academy be exposed to our politics, philosophy, economics core curriculum, you're certainly going to hear elements of that that are going to manifest in the way that we approach our different tracks that we're going to present over the course of the 2 weeks of Summer Academy. The third commitment is the community, the way we do community at King's, which is an Oxford modeled house system, if you will, as opposed to a Greek system. And while we won't plug you into the house system while you're here at King's, you're certainly going to interact with a number of our current students who are going to be facilitators of the Summer Academy experience. And the house system will come up in those conversations just organically, because it's such a big part of how we approach everything that we do here. And then the final commitment is the city itself. It's being right here in the heart of what is, the cultural capital of the world in some cases. And in many ways, just as Dr. Talcott has already alluded to, we're not going to separate from that. Our field trips are going to be facilitated by public transportation and going and interacting with other tourists and people who live here in the city and make their life here. So the 4 commitments that are part of kind of the secret sauce of the King's College, you'll have an opportunity to experience those in a small way during the week that you're here for Summer Academy.
Great. Well, I don't have anything to add to that in particular. So a lot of questions coming in here, which is excellent. We're going to do a short commercial break with a video about Summer Academy with some footage from previous years. Please, during this time, if you have any questions, now's the time to ask them. When we come back, I'm going to answer some logistical questions, and then I'm going to throw out a few broader questions that you guys have brought up. So we're going to go to the video now. If you have questions, please go ahead and submit them, and we'll see you again shortly. Great. Well, welcome back. So this is the section where we're going to deal with some Q&A and hear from some of the faculty here. So first, let me talk a little bit about the structure of Summer Academy more generally. You've heard a lot about the academic part and the structure and what you'll be studying. But Summer Academy, the week-long experience, is academics, but it also is about experiencing the city. And so I mentioned food earlier. The food is really good. In terms of structure, there are going to be lectures most days. So the first day there'll be a lecture by an expert on the history of New York City, talking about New York City, where it came from, how it's developed. And then on Tuesday and Thursday, there'll be 2 hour and 15-minute lectures from your track, so with the content of what you've been reading about and thinking about. And then there'll be field trips on those days as well, related to your track. On Wednesday, Actually, Wednesday, I think there'll be some lectures as well. But Wednesday afternoon is usually a trip to something like the Met, the Museum of Art. And then we usually will do either, we always do a musical, basically. In the evening, we'll go out, take the students out to a musical in the evening, which is a lot of fun. And then we wrap up on Friday. So most days you've got some lectures. Sometimes you have a field trip. Sometimes we're going to things all together as a track, like the Met. And then there's experiencing Broadway, going to a musical. And some of you asked, is there much free time involved? And there's some. So something else about the program, the way we structure it logistically, is we have a number of current King's students who are going to be around to kind of help facilitate things, to show you around, to be there. And in the past, these student ambassadors have also taken students out to do stuff in the evening. So when we wrap up at 7, they'll take people to Central Park, or they'll take people to Hell's Kitchen, or different parts of the city, depending on what they want to do. So there'll be opportunities for a few outings like that. And of course, the field trips will be around the city. There'll be some things we'll do all together as a track. So there'll be some free time. There's also going to be a lot of walking. So don't make separate plans to like go do all these things, but there will be some opportunity to go to pursue things that you're interested in. Here are a few questions that have come up. What neighborhood is King's and King's housing in? So King's, we're in the financial district, so it's kind of downtown Manhattan, near the World Trade Center. The hotel that students will be staying at is just a block or two, a couple blocks from the campus. So it's all going to be downtown Manhattan. Do all the students attending the academy stay at the same hotel for the duration of the week? If they're staying on campus, they are. We will, in the past and this summer as well, there will be a few commuters who are from the area who will commute in on different days. But by and large, most students will be at the hotel all together during the week. And the student ambassadors will be there, and there'll be a faculty or staff person there as well. And we go through kind of how those logistics work. Here's a question, I think, directed to Professor Glatter. What track would you recommend for someone interested in film?
Oh, interesting. I think culture criticism could be very good, or visual storytelling, visual journalism. Either one of those I think would be right up your alley, unless you love sports and making films about sports. Then you got to think about that. But I would try to focus on the cultural criticism or the visual storytelling. Maybe it comes down to more information from you. Mm-hmm. Feel free to reach out to me directly. If you can find my my contact info on the King's website. If you want to ask more specifics and tell me more about your film interests, I might be able to help you determine which of those two tracks would be perhaps better fitting for you.
Great, good. Here's another question that you can pick who wants to answer. What advice would you have for someone moving to New York City from a small town?
Well, I'll go first, and then because essentially, like I said, I came from South Dakota.
Yep.
And when I was in college, I came to New York City 3 different times, and each time I felt more and more at home. And I came in college with college journalism conferences and wasn't with other believers. So I think, a big city can be very intimidating, and so being part of coming to a big city with other believers and the care of believers is really important. And we see our students quickly learn having good friends and Christian friends. Christian community is really important. So I think, to me, that's the most important thing is anyone coming to a big city needs to have community. A city this big can become kind of lonely if you don't have community. And strangely, it's lonely for people. It's hard for some people to find community. And I've found, and I tell my students, that the best kind of community is Christian believers, because of the way they care about each other, because of the way they gather and worship, and the kind of depth of friendships that you can create. So I think that's why Summer Academy, to me, is the exact perfect way for you to experience a big city, because it provides that kind of framework and that context, and shows you, maybe helps you determine, can I see myself down the road in New York City for college or for life? That's what I hope the students are thinking about when they're here, not just the readings, but can I see myself? Is God calling me to this place, to this city?
I think that's really
Anything to
wise.
add?
Yeah, I would just say, be open to a little bit of adventure, because the city can kind of take you by surprise, and you want to take advantage when it's a pleasant surprise, and you want to be wise if, it's an unpleasant surprise, such as a transportation delay or something along those lines. So the city is not anything you need to be fearful of, but you need to be wise about, and it can really be an inviting adventure if you're open to it.
Yeah, I was going to mention that about public transit. It is very fun to be able to ride public transit a lot, as long as it's running on time. It's not so fun when you get stuck somewhere. But don't worry, we'll have student ambassadors and faculty. You won't get stuck anywhere you can't get out of. This is your last chance. If anyone has any lingering questions, please submit those now. I'm going to answer a couple here and see if there are any additional ones, and then tell you a little bit about one more program that we have here. So a couple questions that are asked. How long are the classes? How many students? As I mentioned earlier, the class time is structured at an hour and 15-minute, mostly lecture, but it sometimes is discussion as well. So hour and 15-minute segments is the class time, and then that's spaced a couple most days of the week. And then in terms of students, it really depends on enrollment and size. So we've had tracks that were about 8 students, and we've had tracks that were, I don't know, maybe 25. Did you have 25 at one point? Somewhere around there. So my guess is you should expect somewhere between sort of 10 and 25-ish is kind of where we are. The sweet spot, we're kind of aiming for 15 to 20 is where we'd like to be for each track. And then for the whole week with 3 tracks, we're hoping to have around between 40 and 50 students. So you'll get to spend more time with the people who are in the same classes as you, but you'll also get to interact with other people who are coming for that week at some of the common activities that are happening across the board. This is an important question, and you can find this information on our website, but people ask, how much is Summer Academy? So the cost of Summer Academy, it includes, if you're staying here, it includes the hotel and all the food and any materials that we give you and transportation. It's kind of all inclusive once you're here, so you have to kind of figure out how to get here. But for staying here in the city, it's $1,950 for the week. That also includes the college credit. And then if you're just commuting, it's $1,000. But there are scholarships available, quite a few scholarships available. And in particular, for those of you who are tuning in and watching right now, if you apply and deposit before the end of January, there's a $250 discount just for applying and depositing early. So if you're thinking about it, that discount is on the table right now, and there are other scholarships as well. So please don't let that prevent you from applying. We're happy to talk with you and figure that out. New York City is an expensive place to live, but we find ways to make it work for our students, and we can definitely work with you on that. All right, one more question that came in. What is the job of the student ambassadors? Anyone want to tackle that? What did the student ambassadors do?
Well, I'll start.
Yeah, go ahead.
Since I've certainly had student ambassadors that have supported me with the leadership track the last couple of years, and so in many ways they're the facilitators of the logistics behind the scenes. First, they're going to be current King's students who themselves are very comfortable with the city and have a sense of how to get around and make things happen in the way that we need them to. But there's always, it's important for the student ambassador to not just facilitate the program itself, but then to really represent Kings in a positive light, and so, or at least a realistic light. So what we'll find in my case, I've really enjoyed getting to work with my student ambassador over the last couple of years, because there's something of the faculty assistant would be a similar relationship that we would have during this semester. But getting to know them and understanding where they're from and how they talk about Kings to prospective students it's fun to watch, and it's good to get to know our current student body a little bit better in a more daily way that I don't get to interact with on my role in the administration typically.
I think from what I understand, they also, some of us commute in to teach, so we're not there after hours. They're there with you if you need to find a CVS to get, medication or deodorant or whatever you need. I think they kind of help you on all those things. They're kind of like a camp counselor, if I understand right. Yeah.
Yeah, and they from my experience, they tend to be pretty fun individuals as well. So we don't pick meek, quiet people to hang out with you. So they're a lot of fun, and they kind of make your lives easier, and they're just around for sort of guidance. And like I said, they take students out sometimes during the week to go visit different places that aren't part of the structured part of the program. And so you really get to meet some of the best students who are here. Great. Well, that wraps up, I think, most of the questions. So there's just a few more things that I want to tell you about very briefly. So first, many of our Summer Academy students who've either done Summer Academy or are interested in it have also been interested in something that we offer called dual enrollment. And many of you may be familiar with this, but it's something to think about. If you're excited about King's, but you still have some years of high school to finish up, there are different courses that you can take and do dual enrollment with King's. So we have a short video that we're going to show talking about dual enrollment briefly. And then when we come back, I'm just going to kind of wrap things up, kind of remind you some of the details of the program, and say farewell. So we're going to look at that short video about dual enrollment now, and then we'll say farewell.
Hi, my name is Phoebe Leach. I'm from Missouri. I'm in the House of Sojourner Truth, class of 2021, and I'm studying finance at the King's College. I chose to dual enroll at King's for two reasons. First, I dual enrolled often throughout high school, and so this was just something I wanted to do to get college credit while I was still in high school. And second, I was interested in the King's College and wanted to get a taste of the quality of education they offer. So I chose two courses my first semester. I did Introduction to the Literature of Hebrew Scripture and the Science Fiction and Fantasy of C.S. Lewis. These courses, the titles just really intrigued me. I love C.S. Lewis. I love studying the Old Testament. So they were perfect two starter courses for me, and I was thrilled with the quality of education presented. Considering how affordable the dual enrollment courses are, it was such a high value. I was getting personal interactions from my professor. I was making friendships with fellow classmates through online discussion forums and emails, and I was reading incredible course material in new ways that I had never thought of before. So for each of my dual enrollment classes with King's, I spent about 1 to 2 hours a day, and that included reading course material, listening to lectures taught by the professors, and interacting with fellow students on discussion forums. So in each of my classes, there are a variety of different students, some of whom were dual enrolled like me, some of whom were at different colleges, and some who were at King's. I was in a college writing class with my neighbor, who now lives with me in New York City. And so I was able to form these relationships online and then meet these people in real life when I came to King's. I had already founded a community, and it was so neat to connect with them before even coming to King's.
All right, welcome back. So I just want to, again, briefly recap here in case you joined us late or trying to keep everything straight, just to remind you of some of the details. So again, Summer Academy, we're offering this summer in New York City. There are 2 weeks. The first week is from July 14th to 19th, so that's a Sunday to a Friday. And then the second week is going to be July 28th to August 2nd. Again, sort of a Sunday evening to Friday midday is how it runs. That first week we offer 3 tracks. We offer philosophy and the good life, economics and foreign aid, and then Christian leadership and the American founding. So those are the 3 tracks you can pick from in that first week. And then the second week, we're offering sports and entertainment journalism, arts and culture reporting, and then visual journalism or visual storytelling and design. So a lot of options. We're very excited about all of them. A few of the tracks are new, and some of the tracks we've run before. So that's all happening. With the structure of the week, as I mentioned before, there'll be a lot of meals, a lot of kind of places we'll go to try out different kinds of food that's characteristic of New York City. There'll be lectures, usually in the mornings during the week, and then there'll be field trips and outings in the afternoon. There'll be some informal evening trips with student ambassadors, depending on where people are interested, students are interested in going. And of course, there'll be a Broadway play Wednesday evening, which is always a blast to go see that. And it's if you haven't seen Broadway before, it's really a remarkable thing. So anyway, at this point, we're just wrapping up here. If you have any questions, you're welcome to contact any of us. Our information's all available on the King's website. There are also people who work with Summer Academy who can help you with logistical details. You can find a lot of information on the website. The next step, if you're interested, is to apply, to just go online and fill out an application for Summer Academy, and then once you're accepted there, we'll talk with you about the pricing, and if when you talk about scholarships, and then once you've applied and selected your track and deposited, then you'll hear from us in the coming month or so with more details about the specific lecture titles and the readings and more information about what the week is going to look like. So anyway, thank you for joining us, and we hope to see many of you here this summer. Thanks.